What's up, boys and girls? What's going on? Are you pumped? Are you ready for today? Are you ready to rock it out? I would say that I'm ready to rock it out, but I just realized that my mega hot half Korean wife, my beauty queen secretary wife, forgot my straw! I can't do it without a straw, guys. I'm sorry. It's over. It's over. No more. We're not going to be able to do any more. It's a big bummer. It's a big fat bummer. Normally, I'd have to have that coffee straight to the dome. That's just the way that it would work, you know? But right now, I'm feeling really down, guys. Do I look like it? Watch this. Watch. Is this me? I don't think so. I need that straw. I need that straw. Stat, what's up in the comments section? By the way, Lasance says, late? I put 10:15, man. I put 10:15. I don't know if you noticed that. I need to just like change the time right before I go live. And that way I can, right before, that way I can say, oh yeah, I'm on time, man, see? I'm on time every time. It's always changing. It'll be like, 10:17, 10:32. Oh, I love you guys. Ow! It is Wednesday, November 3rd. I hope you had a happy All Saints and All Souls. Wasn't that a great weekend? Wasn't it just awesome? Yeah, I had a good one. Yesterday was the first time that I had ever served a Requiem Mass in the traditional Latin Mass. I've never served in a Novus Ordo. I don't even know how. haven't even taken a class on it or anything, But the thing is that I've never done a Requiem. And I'm a thurifer, so it was funky rules, man. They're always changing them up on me all the time. But it was a good time. Got a good picture of that. You can find that over at the Wolfpack chat. Jay Pernovis, yes, in the comments. Nice to see you as well. Glad to see you, man, over on Telegram. And I'm really grateful for the comments that you've made there thus far. Jacob Fowler says, did you expect otherwise? Oh, me being late? He's a contributor. You're still on the fence, Jake. You're still on the fence. I seem to get the most trouble from my mods and my buddies, my contributors. They're always causing me all sorts of difficulties. All the time. Benoit's on time. Benoit is on time. Veronica, hello. Yes, I know who you are, VM. I know who you are. And I know what the M stands for, too. I know what the M stands for. We're going to have a really good show for you today. It's going to be fun. Because we're going to be talking about Father Lassance. And a lot of you may have already known about him through his missal. You're at least familiar with the name. Not many Lasances around town, right? You're like, oh, you're a Lasance. Okay, that's like John and Jim and Bob and Matt. No, not really. So there's not many of those. And so he has this amazing missal. We have it here at the house. My son Ambrose likes to use that one particularly. But he's written many other things, and I realized, not just the impact that the missal has had on me, but also the guide for young men and for young women, what the impact that had on me. I'm still a young man, I can say that, but it's had a huge impact on me, But then I realized as I was putting this all together that I really didn't know much about the man. Who is Father Lassance? And it was awesome to read about him, and the kind of life he lived. We're going to go over a little bit of that. But before we do, I've got a couple announcements. One of them I have to clarify because I already know people are going to be like, I knew it. I knew it. Okay, for one, I got to say this. I don't normally drink beer, okay? I don't drink it very often. It's very rare that I ever drink any alcohol at all. Most of the time, I enjoy doing keto. It may not look like it. I'm not in shape. I am in a shape. I'm in a shape that I don't particularly like, but I am in a shape. But I generally avoid things with a bunch of sugars in it and carbohydrates, stuff like that. However, and I said this yesterday on yesterday's show, I got a box, and in this box yesterday, it was awesome. The timing was perfect. I wish I had the bottle with me of the beer I tried yesterday. It's 8%. Wow, dang son. DSE Ray. Here, I'll go ahead and I'll put the magnet right there. Look at this. It's the Memento Mori edition. It even says Memento Mori right there on it. The Tridentine Brewing Company. Okay, Tridentine Brewing, right? Because it's still a family brewery, and they sent me a letter. And in this letter, they sent me all together, it was eight different kinds of beer. And I told them, and this is a while back, because I actually have to apologize to my Exodus 90 friends, because we're doing it, and I'm like, I told them I'd be drinking these on the show. I guess I didn't really process the fact that it's a 10 in the morning show, right? And so I want to let everybody know right away. Number one, I don't normally drink beer. Number two, there's not going to be any more than one. And that one will be spread out over 2 hours. You're not going to see me tank that. No, straight to the dome with a straw for some beer. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. But however, I told him, I said, I'm going to drink this stuff. So if I can't hide the icky face. If I think it's gross, you guys are going to see it. It'll be like, oh, like that. But if I have to judge it based on the DSE array that we had yesterday, amazing. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And it's a family thing. But they sent this to me, and I just want to say this. We got a couple announcements. So the people who don't like the announcements, come back in a little bit. Because we've got a couple. We've got some really big news for you, too, and some updates for people who are still crazy enough to not be part of the Wolfpack chat. I still don't know if I can forgive you. You're gonna have to do some serious, laying outside of the Wolfpack chat in your sackcloth and ashes out there laying on the ground, crying out, please let me in. And I'll stand there and say, yes, I'll let you in. Of course, I'll let you in. I like you. And of course, you can find the links for those down below. But we did a live video yesterday, and so I read some of this. So there may be people who heard this, but there'll be people who have not. And so I wanted to just say this. This is really cool to me. I love it. About Tridentine Brewing. Right? For some further context, home brewing is something that my family's been doing for some time. Apparently, maternal grandfather was instrumental in helping to convert his father to Catholicism, the man who wrote this. Taught my father how to brew in the mid-1990s. They started a much more serious brewing situation there in 2019 when he converted his cistern in his 1905 Victorian home in Illinois into a small brewery. And they chose the name, right, Tridentine Brewing, as my family's been going to the TLM since the late 90s, when my father converted from Protestantism. We wanted our initiative to glorify Orthodox Catholicism and spread a traditional Catholic message. I think one of those is drinking a beer at 10 in the morning on PaleocratDiaries. I gotta get one that's not very strong. What I gotta do. Especially non-Catholic friends and coworkers, right? And so they might not be interested in talking about it, but if you give them a beer with a Catholic theme, all of a sudden they're much more interested. It's kind of like the SpongeBob theme memes, My buddy, Peter Michael Burke, he's like, oh, you're not interested in the League of Christ Sovereign? You might be interested in SpongeBob memes with Catholic themes. And they're like, that's dope. And you're like, yeah, it's the gateway drug. It's the gateway drug. Oh, man. So, okay, but it's awesome, right? He talks about, I won't go into all the details here, but saying that, they're not, there's a lot of people that have asked about whether or not it's going to go commercial, because home brewing has itself been legal since 1978, but selling a home beer is illegal in the USA. Something that is not out of the question, but it would take a serious financial commitment to make it happen. As such, we are content to continue to hone the brewing craft and leave it as a fun family hobby that doubles as a brewing apostolate. You can find all that, TridentineBrewing.com. I'll go ahead and put that in the description below. You got to put it down there in the comment section. So make sure to put that in the comments. But check it out. These are the fellas. Those are the fellas brewing that glorious beer. And it's remarkable. And it was cool because they actually sent me something. Let me see if I got it. Oh, I didn't even know this. They got more pictures. How did I not see that? Yeah, they had something else. Basically, talking about how they learned of the site, and I can't find that right now. I talked about that on the show yesterday. You can find it. You can find it over there. I'm not going to play around with that. But the thing is, they were talking about how it really meant a lot in learning about Samantha. Learning about our family and the things that we've gone through as a family, and how much that's meant to them. And if I ever have the chance and ever have the opportunity that I can go on down there and maybe spend the day down there doing some cool brewing with them, and they said, even if you can't spend all day, I'll say this: I would probably not only spend the day, I'd probably pass out on your couch. So you're gonna have to feed me. You're gonna have to feed me. I don't care if it's peanut butter and jelly. I don't care as long as there's beer. This, by the way, is not the beer. This is the coffee, and I still don't have my straw. What is happening out there? What is happening? Everybody's letting me down. So, all right. I decided I'm going to do this one today. Check it out. Tell me that you love this. There's one other one. They got Quartermaster Jerry. I don't know about that. Hold on. There's one that I particularly... Right here. So, yeah, you got right here. Archbishop Holdenstein. Look at that. It's called Life is Worth Living. Yes. And then right here, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Yes. Brown ale. And what's the other one here? Irish Red. There was one. What is this? There was one. It was a New England IPA. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the Second Amendment. I'll show you that here in a second. Gonna try that one. Yeah, sorry about that. And we've got more announcements. It ain't stopping anytime soon. So, okay, check it out. They sent this, of course. Mega dope. Super, super, super dope. Gonna go ahead and pop that bad boy open right now. I know they told me to put it in a bottle or in a glass. Not gonna do it. I'm gonna drink it right out of the bottle. And right here, I'll sip on this. Whoop. Yeah. I should have done that. Hey, Ange, help me. No. That's what I get, guys. Watch this. Try to make it to the top now, Bubble. Try to make it to the top now. Oh my gosh, man. I was not expecting that. I should have. My buddy did home brewing. I've helped make some brews. Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Second Amendment. All right. Even the bubbles are delicious. So, all right. That's my sip. That's my sip. So, okay, I'll drink more of that later. Absolutely fantastic. I told them that I would. Yeah. Oh, VM says, I hate the beer volcano. You know what? It happens when you're bottling brews at home. I know that. So, and it was kind of fun to be struggling with that, right? In the moment, the fear. I'm like, oh no, this is out of control. And I thought maybe it would work, like just a couple times, just taking it off the top. No. It just wanted to keep going. It was a volcano. And I'm like, stop erupting, please. I'm begging the saints. I'm like, please help me. Oh, it was going to be out of control the whole time. Man, that is really good. Okay. And yeah, he said he wasn't sure that I would say anything about, of course I am. I'm going to drink it on the air. That was the deal. I just forgot you were going to send it. And I forgot that I was on at 10. So, okay, we're moving on right now. I'm not shotgunning it. No, Andrew Stahl. And by the way, I replied to you in the video from Monday. If you missed the Monday show, I wake up at 4 in the morning for that one, and I'm not late, okay? Because I'm not running that show. Otherwise, I'd be late, But Tim's running the show, so I'm like, I gotta be there on time. And they're like, what time we gotta be there? 10, 11, and he's like, 5 in the morning. What? What are you thinking? And it's based apparently off of some crazy thing that Kennedy Hall said, maybe in a book or something. And I'm like, really? Really, guys? Do you need to do that? I think it's killing us over there. But I commented because you said something about Thomas Woods Jr., and I replied to that. And yes, to the people who wondered, They're like, you used to write for the Distributist Review? Yes, man. Yes. I was a contributing editor over there. I'm the guy who took all the pictures at the Thomas Stork and Novak debate that took place, And I was part of it, 5 or 6 people at was it Portuguese restaurant in New York that put together the Society for Distributism. So it was the first society in America for distributism, and I was part of that group of people. So yes, man. And for the record, I'm not a strict distributist. In fact, I never was. I never was. I caused all sorts of issues. So all right, now we are going to show something. I'm going to walk away here, let the bubbles settle down, get some stuff together for the show. It's going to be a good one. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead. I want to play 2 really big announcements, okay? One announcement is something that occurred yesterday, and this is why you need to go to the Wolfpack chat. And I'm not even joking. I'm not joking about this. I'm not saying this. I'm not making money over there. Right? We're just having fun. We're just having a good time. And you need to understand what you missed because, you're going to find out right now. We'll be back right after this with an even bigger message because it's going to make the first announcement explode. Okay, so the first announcement is huge. The second announcement is going to have the effect of like pumping elephant testosterone into the first announcement, and all of a sudden the first announcement is going to be like, "You thought I was buff before," and it's just going to be amazing. So here's the first one. We'll be back in a couple minutes right after this. Don't go anywhere. You're watching PaleocratDiaries right here on Meaning of Catholic. Yeah! Wow, we're at 100. We are at 100! 100 people at the Wolfpack chat on Telegram. Unless you think I am just over-exaggerating the importance of this moment, let me assure you, I most certainly am not. Ow! Oh, I'll tell you, I love y'all like crazy. And check this out. Hold on. Watch this. Blam! There it is. You thought I was joking. You thought I was over-exaggerating. Oh, he's a little bit too excited. I don't think so. And you want to know why? I'll show you why. Check this out. Because Nacho Libre is excited. Because the dogs are excited. Yes, the dogs. And, oh, look at this. Even the cat. Even the cat is getting in on the action. Oh, people are pumped. Look at this. Oh, yeah, they know what's coming. People know what is coming. Oh, even Taylor Marshall. Look at that. Even Taylor Marshall is excited, guys. This was him in real time. He got the memo. He got the dispatch. He was looking out his window, and he saw the smoke signal from the pack, and he's like, "What up, son?" Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on. We've been at this for a minute. We have, well, it's kind of funny. It makes it sound like we've been trying like really, really hard. We've just been ourselves, haven't we? We've just been ourselves, just having fun, getting to know each other, sharing great links, sharing great videos, right? All different kinds of songs, prayers, and the like. Let's go back real quick. Check this out. I don't know if you noticed this. It's constantly bumping all the time. Right now, Brian's typing. What's up, Brian? How you doing? You got Catholic Prayer Chain, PaleocratDiaries. That's just me. Book Club of the Canine Brigade. The VKM bot. If you like those MP3s that I share, you got to go ahead and you got to add that as a buddy. It's really easy. And of course, the Wolfpack resources. Okay, so that right there, that's in my work folder. It is some work, isn't it? It is some work, but it is the greatest work. It is the greatest work that, as a pack, right, that we're doing, is the assemblage of all those things. Because we're learning about each other. We're making new friends. We're asking for prayers. We're giving praise reports about prayers, in fact, that have already been answered. And it's just a great time. And we need to be able to do that, don't we? We need to be able to have a good time, especially in times like ours, because they're bad. because they're wicked. And you'll see that sometimes, people, they'll post stuff about the tragic things going on in the world, and it's all around you. I mean, you're probably following a bazillion channels that talk about that stuff. But we don't as much, do we? We don't as much. We're like the flip side of this. It's like the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right? So we are the flip side to that coin. We're the smiley face, like those masks that are like half angry or sad, and the other side is smiling. We're part of the crying clown. We're the laughing part. We cry sometimes too, But it's just been a really great ride, and I just wanted to make nothing long, just something short, less than 5 minutes. I got the timer on. And the thing is, I just wanted to say thank you. I just wanted to say thank you and how awesome it is to be able to wake up every day and just know that I can go on Telegram and it's just bumping and more and more and more people all the time. And I should say the name of number 100, okay, the name of number 100, it's G-Yo. G-Yo. What's up, G-Yo? I hope G-Yo has a fun time. I don't even know if G-Yo has said anything yet. Just wait, it's an FBI bot. we're like, yeah. They're like, we want to see what he's gonna mukbang. Oh, it's gonna happen, folks. But anyways, thank you very much. Make sure, of course, to like, comment, share, subscribe over at Meaning of Catholic, but also at Reason and Theology. And why? The answer is easy. Because beginning next Monday, 10 to noon. Okay, so I've added it to that time slot. That way, there's nobody has to be like, oh yeah, that's right, he's on. Angry face. Angry face right now. I just realized that I made the announcement a little prematurely. Okay, hurry up. We're gonna pretend that nobody heard that part. Because that's the second promo. Wait. Yeah, that didn't happen. Okay? See the hands? That's confusing you right now. It's what I do when I'm trying to make you forget the last 5 to 10 seconds of that video. Oh man. So here we go. Here's the second promo that I said. And this one's shorter. This one I think is 2 minutes. It lasts the length of the song. And so it's 2 minutes. So here we go. This is a bunch of fun, big promo. You'll see it on the screen coming up in a moment, so you won't want to miss it. We'll be right back right after this. Check it out. And don't you love those memes, by the way? They were made in the Wolfpack channel. Thanks, Veronica. Oh, yeah. You know that sound right there. Listen to this. Listen. That right there is the PaleocratDiaries alert system. Listen to the siren. Right now, all around the world, the four corners, all over the place, there are people, right, with binoculars out. They've got those fancy horns for deaf people in the olden days, listening for that siren. And the moment that they hear it, carrier pigeons are let loose. People, they're like, get to the fire, get the rug, and they're like, we're already on it, son. Yeah, smoke signals left and right. And why? Because that right there means big time announcement is about to drop. And this is the announcement. I thought I mentioned it earlier, but it seems as if even some of my admins have not gotten the memo. I try my best. Here's the thing. I have heard the outcry. I have heard your howls. I have heard it. It has reached my ears. And I said, I understand. You're super bummed. You're mega depressed. Curled up in a corner. Crying. Saying, why? Why, Lord? Why isn't Paleocrat on for more than 2 days a week? I understand. I feel the same way. I might not be crying in the corner, but I'm awfully close. I'm on the sofa. I'm on the chaise lounge, right? But we had to figure it out. And I didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, someone enters the scene. And his name is Michael Lofton. So Michael Lofton, the two of us, we put our heads together. We break out the Saint Maker. Both of us are affiliates. So we break out the Saint Maker. We think about it. Some mistakes were made. Like, for example, he accidentally deleted my episode on his channel. Back to the Saint Maker. Back to the Saint Maker. We decide Mondays 10ish to noonish. So now, from now on, henceforward, beginning next week, Monday, Reason and Theology. Wednesday and Friday, over at Meaning of Catholic. Love you guys. I hope this helps. Oh. All right. We've got that music back because we're entering the octagon. We are now entering the octagon. Okay, we're going to be talking now. Before, it was enthusiasm, and we're still working on that. We're still working on making it so that you will be able to watch the series, maybe even with the addition of new pictures and everything, starting at the time of presentation. That's the way it's going to work. You're going to have to find all that over at PaleocratDiaries.com. You got to go there anyway. You can become a member there. You can become a member at our Patreon. Right down in the description below, you will find all of those links, everything available, how to connect with me on any platform. We're at that place now where we're going to be talking about coming of age. We're going to talk about marriage. We're going to talk about parenting. We're going to talk about growing old. And we're going to allow the great, the man that I hope one day shall be declared a saint. I think he ought to be. The great Father Francis Xavier Lasance. We're going to be letting his guide for young men and young women, and young and old men and women, allow it to lead the way. So prepare yourself. Get that coffee ready. Howl at the sun. Let the world know you're not ashamed. You take a knee for Jesus Christ every single day, committed to the endeavor to never give up. Keep on smiling, and memento mori. Ow! That's the way we do it. That's the way we do it. And in the past, I would say every Wednesday and Friday. And now I'm saying Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Blam, blam, blam. Paleocrat Diaries. Taking over, son. Taking over. The Kaiser's taking over. Oh, I love you guys. I love it. Again, thank you for joining in the comments section. Thank you so much. Benoit loves the intro music pieces. Yeah, man, so do I. Aren't they great? Andrew Stahl, Lasance. Yes, totally, 100%. Dale Carnegie. Man, am I enthusiastic. Is that an actual quote from Carnegie? Right here. Yeah, Patty, and tell Lofton I am blacker than he will ever. What are you even talking about? You're the guy that still thinks that I'm in some secret endeavor to promote the SSPX. I don't listen to you anymore, Patty. I don't listen to you anymore. Oh, man. But you said Der Kaiser, so okay. You're okay. Yes, and Saint Maker. Yeah, Saint Maker. You got, okay, yes, he is a Saint Maker, isn't he? Lasance is a Saint Maker. You know, and I have the ad for Saint Maker. I'm not going to play that till the end. I will say I have gotten word back. I received a dispatch from the folks over there, because I gave them some input, right, as to the stuff that people have told me. People through the channel have tried to buy it, even out of overseas and stuff to do with social media and stuff, because they're not following me, man. I'm like, how are you not following me on Twitter? And it's ridiculous, man. You got to follow me, you know. And so, but I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for the Saint Maker. Like I said in the promo there, it's something that helped me kind of wade my way through the waters in order to figure out and land that exact sweet spot that said Monday is where it is for Paleocrat Diaries on Reason and Theology. And by the way, it'll be the same flow of everything. It's just who I am. But we're going to be talking probably going through the book, How Not to Be Secular or Secular Age, or both in tandem, because one is an abbreviation of the other, right? It's trying to boil it down boil it down to its basic parts and stuff like that. And so I think it'd be more in line, and it would allow the Lasance series to be exclusive over here at Meaning of Catholic. I don't want that to go back and forth all over the place. And so I kind of want to divide it up. Pray for me that I make some wise decisions. So, all right, here we go. Let's get over to scene 2. Check this out, by the way. How do you like that? How do you like that, huh? Yeah. Okay, we're going to do, I got the 100 up there in honor. I got the 100. Check it out right there. Number 1, son. I'm all like, number 1, we're at 100. That's how I feel, though. It's how I feel. I felt that way when we were 10, you know? And some folks have been along for the ride that long. So we're really grateful. But we're going to be promoting it. That's the new layout here. We'll use that for a while. And it's just really excited. Wait till it gets to be like a whole bunch of different stuff. It's going to be like a NASCAR with all the stickers. You're like, this guy's all over. What's going on? And the Paleocrat Empire is expanding, right? Tim Flanders said that. Tim Flanders. So, okay, but before we do, check this out real quick. Okay. So this over here, the Catholic World Report. Okay, no fees, no paywalls, no monthly limits. CatholicWorldReport.com. There's an article by Joseph Hanneman. 2021. So this year, it's just under a year old, January 23rd. Writing about Father Lassance, quote, "Make everything count for eternity. The story of Saint. I'm speaking ahead of myself, aren't I? We got to petition this thing. We got to join. If there's already people, I got to imagine there are. We got to promote that because he's definitely worthy of it. His life story is remarkable. And there he is, of course, right here. I didn't realize this because I learned a lot about this too, you know. And I should have done this with Ronald Knox. I'll do this in the series once a playlist is dedicated specifically to enthusiasm, with skipping over all the intros and the niceties at the beginning and all that stuff, and the comment section at the end. Just the presentation of each chapter. I'll include pictures. So I'll have pictures and charts or anything like that I can add to kind of help when I'm talking about certain people, that you can even have a visual aid as to who that individual is, where that place, if it, you know, different places around the world, where that might be, the location on a map, stuff like that. You know, but I'll probably add a video about Monsignor Ronald Knox that is an introduction that just gives you an idea for who he is, you know, and the great work that he did. And so, and why, in my opinion, he's one of those guys I wish was a saint. And so, let's see. Okay, that's even better. Okay. Let me take this thing off. Let me take that toggle cursor. Take that off there. Okay. All right. So one thing that I learned about Father Lassance was the enormous amount of pain that he endured throughout his life. I was unaware of this. And so it's one of those things where when talking about even a slight draft could bring agony, right? Irritated nerves caused immense physical pain. He had headaches that he described as torturous. It made it very difficult for him to do the work of the priest at his parish. And he had a very long battle with these pains that just got worse and worse over time. But out of these struggles came great spiritual riches. The fruit of Lassance's suffering came through his writing, a steady stream of more than 40 devotional books and missals across 5 decades. Just think about that. Think about the enormous amount of work that he did in those 5 decades, right? And you say, it's humbling. You know, I think of, you know, I've done a lot of things. I made a lot of videos, done a lot of podcasts, wrote a lot of articles, wrote a lot of blogs, things like that, done investigative series and whatnot, written poetry, but nothing remotely close to the caliber of this. Not even remotely close. I've had poetry published in an intercollegiate journal, but not yet a book. Right? It's coming though. It's coming because I'm supposed to submit it at the end of December to an editor. So my novel about our family, my daughter's life and death with cancer, and how that ultimately led our family back to the faith. And so expect that. We're hoping that it'll be 2022 with a nice cover and everything else, nice artwork, pictures and everything. So, but right here, across 5 decades, quite literally taught much of the world how to pray. 75 years after his death, the growing collection of Father Lassance's books is in print once more, right? A resplendent treasury of the Catholic faith waiting for new generations to discover. Despite his infirmities, Father Lassance maintained a positive and upbeat attitude. And this is what I love, it's one thing to go through suffering, right? Like we talked about Madame Guyon and how Madame Guyon went through a lot of suffering, and she let everybody know all the time. Everybody knew. She wore it on her sleeve, the kind of suffering that she went through. But then there's folks like him, like Father Lassance. Maintained a positive, upbeat attitude. He promoted virtues like patience, humility, and kindness. He wrote in poetic tones of the need to focus on happiness. Perhaps his most beloved work, My Prayer Book, aims to point out the brighter side of life, the silver lining to the cloud overhead, the sunshine that follows the rain, the sweet little wildflowers that grow by the wayside amid thorns and briars. He wrote that in the introduction. It's one of those things, we've talked about it here, dancing in the rain, laughing at the lightning, right? The jollity of thunder, being able to look at those storms and to be able to accept the valley of tears. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be broken and to be hurt. But at the same time, to have that silver lining and to realize that silver lining's there because the sun is behind the cloud. And it's just a matter of time before the wind causes even that to pass by. So it's one of those things. Even this too shall pass. That was something that my uncle told me when I was going through the stuff I was going through with my daughter. He came up and he said a very wise woman. He was talking about my grandmother, Grandma. He was talking about her saying a really wise woman one day told him, this too shall pass. She didn't coin it. If people have said that before, I'm like, nope, it's my grandma. My grandma made that. But it's true, and Father Lassance had a way of instructing people in a way, not only of instructing, but living it out. He said right here, Father Lassance said his prayer books aim to, quote, lay stress upon the advantages of being sweet-spirited and sunny-tempered, of diffusing around us an atmosphere of good cheer. Quoting St. Francis de Sales, already a winner in my book, right? Already a winner. He wrote, quote, he who believes in infinite providence, which extends even to the lowest worm, must expect good from all that happens to him. And that he said, he loves, that God loves us as a father, and our sorrows are blessings in disguise. I've said they're bittersweet bedfellows. The things that we laugh about today might be things that we cry about tomorrow, and the things that we cry about today will be things that will bring us laughter in the future. He was born on January 24th, 1860, the third son of August Lasance and the former Wilhelmina de Tert. His father, a merchant tailor, immigrated from Germany, arriving in New Orleans on New Year's Eve, 1847. We're going to scroll over a whole bunch of this because it talks about the struggles that he went through, the pain. And it says, over the next decade, Lasance published the globally popular My Prayer Book, The Catholic Girl's Guide, The Young Man's Guide, and prayer books for religious. We're going to be going through the Catholic Girl's Guide and the Young Man's Guide. We're going to be going through that in this series. Apparently, there's beautifully bound books and leather covers, red or gilded page edges, rounded page corners, and beautiful illustrations. I don't have that version. I need to find those. Because the only ones I've got, maybe they've got a link in here. I've got the ones that have that kind of, paper cover to it, real thin. But I kind of dig it a little bit. I kind of dig it, to be honest. And it's held its own for a long time. So right here, they were comprehensive with topical reflections, counsels, a wide range of prayers and devotions, the order of Mass, Vespers, and more. And by the way, for people who aren't in the Wolfpack chat, those in the Wolfpack chat can tell you, I've been talking on the show about methods of hearing Mass. And a lot of people had never even heard that before. They'd never heard that phrase before, hearing Mass. And they asked me about the missal and said, I admitted that I don't always read the missal during Mass. And then some people were like, what are you talking about, bruh? And I said, no. I said, from the same prayer book with the missal in it, there are methods of hearing Mass. And people are like, what's that mean? Well, I shared pictures of the method of hearing Mass according to St. Francis de Sales, right, following the Passion. And I shared the method of hearing Mass, the indulgenced method of hearing Mass, where every single prayer that's lined up that you follow throughout the Mass, that prays along and assists with the themes that are happening within the Mass, that the priest is celebrating at the altar, that you're praying along with that, with these prayers, each of them being indulgence. Below it has what the indulgences are for each one, what's required for it. And it's Father Lassance's indulgence method of hearing Mass. I'll share that over at Patreon, but right now it's currently over at the Wolfpack chat as well as at the Wolfpack resource page. Okay, so that's in there too. It's in the boy one, right? But he never took royalties from the millions of books sold around the world, and he asked that resources be used to provide copies to the poor. This guy's a saint. This guy is a saint. If you don't believe it yet, you got to believe it now. The guy is a saint. Speaking of a guy aiming to be a future saint, my buddy Peter Michael Burke Jr., he's the president over there at League of Christ Sovereign. You got to go check out that interview. It cut off. We've got to fix it. We've got to fix it. There was a problem with the stream that day, but we're gonna fix it. We're gonna share it independently by itself as a premiere, and I'll try to get him in there on that. And we're gonna be working a lot more together. I'm sorry that I haven't already got in touch with you, but he's in the comments. Same with Jake Fowler. He's the one who did the presentation pertaining to how to prepare for Mass, and so both of them are in the comment section below. If you'd like to talk to them and ask them questions. Prayer is truly a conversation between God and the soul. He talks about what it is. In prayer, the soul breathes the atmosphere of paradise. And by its union with God and its elevation to heavenly contemplation, it enjoys a foretaste of the happiness of the saints in the celestial Eden. So he's not just genius, right? He's saintly. He's a man of prayer. And he had to be, didn't he? Well, he didn't have to be. He didn't have to be. I know a lot of people who endure enormous amounts of suffering and never pray. You know, it's one of those things that I inflicted, in fact, upon my daughter. I didn't pray. But others did. And when asked if it would be okay to pray over her, she allowed a priest, and that priest is now my confessor. And I'd take a bullet for him. Pope Pius XI praised Father Lassance for his devotional books in May 1927 after learning from Cincinnati Archbishop John T. McNicholas about Lassance's persistent physical suffering. Quote, "The most reverend Archbishop of Cincinnati has informed the Holy Father of your modesty, which prompts you to conceal your intellectual activities and of your great zeal for souls manifested for many years, notwithstanding your poor health." All right, and that was written by a cardinal, the papal secretary of state, at the Holy Father's direction. His Holiness wishes that these volumes, which assuredly will promote the spiritual life, may receive an ever-increasing welcome in all the Christian families of your great country. That's according to the letter. Those words are still printed on the front flyleaf of many of Father Lassance's books, including the ones that we have here. The Holy Father imparted his apostolic blessing on Father Lassance. But at Father Lassance's insistence, there was no public recognition of the honor. Only a private blessing delivered over at Sacred Heart Church. Father Lassance knelt for the blessing. He wept at hearing the Pope's words. Oh, man. But even in his emotion, he deflected attention from himself. My books, my books, my books, he said through his tears. Father Timon, reflecting on the meeting, described Lasance as a real saint. Ending up on this, well into the 40s, Father Lassance sat at a walnut roll-top desk in his tiny study, writing and compiling, editing and updating his books. At night, he would typically forgo his bed and he'd doze in his favorite chair. He always left the floor lamp behind the chair lit. This quiet, peaceful environment was fertile soil for his work. In 1937, he completed his magnum opus, the New Roman Missal. 1,800 152 pages. It is a monumental, tour de force, right? Tour de force. And at the end of his life, here's the end. His steps were slowed by swollen legs that Margaret, his sister, said reminded her of beer kegs. During the daily 7 a.m. Mass, Father Lassance struggled to elevate the host and chalice at the consecration. The altar boys were used to Father leaning on them as he gingerly stepped down from the altar. In 1945, he fractured his right wrist and fought off a painful infection in his shoulder and arm. It's not easy to accept this as an occasion of merit, but Father did. Margaret wrote, by December 1946, he stopped celebrating Mass. On December 10th, Father Lassance suffered a bad fall. He lost consciousness until the evening of December 11th. He awoke to find Reverend Charles Cunel of St. Monica's Cathedral standing over his bed. And he said, quote, I suppose I should be anointed. He was given extreme unction. It was just about to give him viaticum. It was 8 p.m. Father Lassance answered all the prayers as Father Cunel read them. He then whispered his last earthly words, fittingly a prayer included in many of his books, quote, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, I give you my heart and my soul. I've benefited from these books. I've benefited from the missal. Whenever I got a question, whenever I have a question about, what does this mean, or what's this item on the altar? What's the meaning of this feast day? What is this all about? That's the standard. And it's not just that. I've been a parent now for 16 years. 16 years. And it's one of those things in life where is it 16 or 17? 2004. May 22nd, 2004, Samantha Lee was born. And I've gone back many times to these books and thought to myself, and there are differences of emphasis. I've got some disagreements at times. I don't know. I think he might have been against the beer. I don't know. Or maybe he was just against the revelry that went on inside of saloons. Oh, man, that Second Amendment is good. The Second Amendment is good, isn't it? Yeah. New England IPA. Tridentine Brewery. Tridentine Brewing. But, differences, and yet at the same time, to say that he was an important person in my life. In fact, he was there with me along the way. And even after all those years, I gave away certain missals. I gave away a lot of books that I didn't think I'd ever read again. And I'm actually kind of grateful for it, because I think that back then I was kind of what is it called? What did David Haleva? What did he call that? Was it aridity? I forget what he called it. But anyway, the idea that you hold on to books, you're not willing to let them go. You're not willing to let them go. I struggled with that, and so I feel like in a way that was actually kind of okay. And the books that I kept were books that ended up, I looked at and I said, there's a good reason why I kept these. They're really not only things that I need still, right? But they're things that I needed then, and they're things that I'll need now, and they're things that I'll need in the future. And so I'm glad to be doing this particular series right now, okay? And again, these books, I hope that people realize that these books, while they are branded for young people and directed largely for young people, and while some of these things were written during times where maybe marriage and divorce were more like the way that our culture had them play out, and separation and stuff, and the way the Catholic families grew up, maybe it was more uniform than it is now, by far. Okay, it's not even close. Not even close. And so there might be things that are said in here that sound ideal, that sound like I didn't live that way. I didn't experience that. The way that he talks about how I should view my father, I don't understand that. My dad was a terrible man. My dad left. You know, maybe your dad wasn't around. Maybe your dad walked out. Maybe your mom did. Maybe you didn't have the kind of home that he talks about. But the truth is, he knew as well as anyone else that not everyone had that same kind of home back then. But it was something to aspire to. And that's why I say that it's not just something that is meant for young people. It's meant for people of all ages. That's why I am 43 years old still reading this. That's why, not just because of my role as a parent, but my role as a Christian man, as a Catholic man. This is a good book for me. As a parent, it is good for me. As a son, it is good for me. A son not only of the church, but a son of Tim Bannister, the man that I call Pa. The son of Mommy, Annette Bannister. Nana. And so I look at these things and I say, I'm so glad that I have them, and I'm so glad for this opportunity. So as we go through this, we're going to make it so that it's as applicable across the board as we can. And Peter just says hoarding on to something. That's what it's called. Yeah, okay. That's all it's called. Yeah, just hoarding. Yeah, that's true. It's true, but there was a certain word for it. There was a certain word for it, man. And make sure, like, comment, share, subscribe. Like, comment, share, subscribe on the video, okay? The first, we're going to talk about, why am I starting with the boys first? Let me not start with the boys first, okay? Let me not start with that. Let me start with the ladies. I should have done that. I thought I had it on. There we go. There we go. Because I should have named this, and maybe I changed it, purity and apologetics. Those two things go in that order too, right? Your life is an apologetic. Your life, an apologetic, right? A defense of a person, a place, institution, right? A cause. Your life, you are a living epistle. We all are. And so the way that we live in the world, it can be a little cliche sometimes, like that phrase that people would say, well, when I see that guy over there, I say that's a Christian. That should be cliche to nobody. We do that when we talk about the saints. We say that person right there, that person. For me, I'm always mentioning St. Francis de Sales. I'm always mentioning St. Alphonsus Liguori. I'm always mentioning St. Teresa of Avila, and increasingly so when it comes to St. Hildegard. Loving that. Even the music, don't you love it? Don't you love the music and the poetry? All of it. She was amazing. But your life, more than anything else, more than any argument, your life is a testament. Your life is a living epistle because you are part of the body of Christ. You are an extension of him in this world. So the way that you live, and not just the way you live in public, but who you really are. People, when they say, who you really are, integrity, right? Who you really are, your authentic self is who you are when no one else is looking. It's who you are when you're in a prayer closet. And sometimes that's not the prayer closet, but avoiding the prayer closet when you're alone is sometimes some of the biggest places for sin, where all those monsters are around. Those wicked monsters with fangs and talons that for some crazy reason we as humans are always dancing with all the time. And we find it hard to pull ourselves away. And oftentimes, don't we think sometimes, I know I do, don't we think sometimes that because people don't see it and that it's private, that it doesn't affect us? Like it doesn't change the persona and the image, the brand that we have as we rove around in public? But it does. And so he begins with the maiden's wreath, the sunflower of faith. He says there's a flower which possesses this peculiarity, that it turns constantly to the sun, following it in its course. On this account, it's called the sunflower. Our faith may be compared to this flower, since its gaze is ever fixed above and turned toward the glorious sun of divine truth. It's one of those things. It's why we say on the show, It's why we say on the show that every thought, every action, every word, that we're constantly taking a knee for Jesus Christ, that we have resolved every day to recommit to this radical endeavor, to never give up, to keep on smiling, and to remember that one day we too shall die. Because if we have that in our mind, then however the Lord is moving about, right? And he moves in mysterious ways sometimes, in ways that take us by surprise all the time. It's true. That we're constantly focused on him, that we've got our eyes cast on that cross constantly. It's the safest bet. The first flower in the maiden's blooming garland of virtues is and ought to be the faith of which we speak. For this faith, a clear, living, steadfast, unalterable faith, is supremely necessary and all important for the maiden, especially in the present day. You know, I hear from ladies on this channel, right? That, and I want to speak with a couple of them about being official contributors with the show. That we can have them even as writers, as, you know, people. We already have two of our mods are ladies, because they rightly point out, you know, meaning Catholic is a dude fest, right? It is. It's very masculine, and that's necessary in our times as well. I'm not dogging that at all. I'm glad to be a part. But I think sometimes, especially in traditional circles, it's easy to lump in femininity with attire, with a mantilla, or a dress that goes below the knee, or a shirt that doesn't show too much chest and shoulder, that kind of a thing. But it's so much more. And that's why I'm really grateful, too, that he wrote a book specifically to the ladies, and that we can have the opportunity right now to talk about them. My daughter went with me yesterday, Teresa. She went with me to the Requiem Mass. And it was her choice. She asked me out of nowhere. She said, "Can I go with you? I just want to be with you." And I took a great picture. I've got the cassock on, right? The surplice, I've got it on. And I'm sitting there and I'm kissing her on the cheek. It's over at the Wolfpack chat. You can see it there. You know, but it's been one of those things that having a daughter, it's different than raising a boy. Those are different, entirely different beasts, right? They are. There's a little bit of overlap. Kids can be kids, right? Some are more sensitive than others. Some are tougher than others. Teresa, she could probably beat down, at least one of the boys. And I'm not talking the little ones. I'm not talking Wolfgang and Louis. Louis is a little ninja, so he would do fine. He'd hold his own. I don't know about Wolf yet. I know about Wolf. But the thing is being able to say, okay, I'm not a girl. I don't have the same internal experience, and neither was Father Lassance. Right? And I know people would say, how dare you talk about the ladies? How dare you talk about the girls? How dare you talk about women topics and stuff like that? And I understand it to a degree. I say, I like hearing or reading when the ladies write of ladies. All right? Like Teresa of Avila, St. Teresa of Avila, writing to the ladies in the convent. And you go, yes, she's writing to the ladies as a woman. But it's also great when those ladies endorse books, for example, like Father Lassance, and say, yep, that's good. Yep, this is good. This is good. By faith, we please God. The desire for happiness is deeply implanted in every human breast. The history of mankind. It's one of those things where I think that's true, where there's a desire for happiness, but there's also sin. And that sin wants to find happiness in all the wrong places. We see it fleshed out in similar ways, in fact, increasingly similar with boys and girls, especially since the advent of contraception. Girls' habits, right, when coming down to procreation, are increasingly similar to men. In a bad way, in the sinful way, right? You say, well, this is a vice that traditionally has been something that was a problem for a man. Playing Johnny Appleseed with babies and stuff all over the world. And now it's something that is a problem for women. And we're seeing this more and more and more. And so in our modern age, where we've got perversion, rampant. Promiscuity, rampant. Immodesty, rampant. When we have that, we need to make sure that we are rooted deeply in the faith, because it's from that source that we will get our instructions as to how we ought to live. What is that standard that we are trying to measure ourselves up to? Is it the world? But the problem is, with the world, it's merely the recital of a ceaseless search for happiness. But where is man to find happiness, and where alone? The following lines will tell you. And I love that he does this. He includes these little lines, poetic. Would you be happy? This is the way. Please God and do his will day by day. Saint-like your duty do, fervently pray. Yes. At the core of that, we've said here that we're a wolf pack of prayer. That prayer is at the core of all that we are as a group. And that's something that was at the core of all that he was, because he understood. He understood that that is the source of those things. That is where we are most intimately connected, especially prayer when at the Eucharist, when taking the Eucharist. Note well that we must strive to be pleasing to God. And it's only by believing him that we can please him. Isn't that hard now? It can be hard sometimes. It's always been hard. There have been times, you can't imagine that it was easy necessarily to believe in God when your family is dying of the plague. But we have a different kind of plague. We have a different kind. We have a plague of secularism and apostasy, doubt, skepticism. It's arrogant through and through. And it makes it so that believing those things that in the past, and this is what secular age is about, and that's why I'm glad that we can talk about secular age on the Reason and Theology show, is that it's become increasingly easy for people who used to have to, it was easy in the past for them to believe in God. In fact, it was a default setting. Hardly anyone didn't. You believed in some kind of God or gods. It was just there. It's what made the classical proofs for God's existence, which Lasance still relied upon. He's writing this prior to the secular age as we understand it, the scientific era as we experience it. But it's what made those so productive. It's what made those efficient, in fact, was that everybody was kind of starting at a default setting. And in some ways, we still are. Like, I don't buy the idea that there is a true atheist person. That's an individual created in the image of God, and they are living and moving and having their being in an order of his design. They suppress the truth for a lie. But to suppress it, you got to know. It's like the person pushing the volleyball under the water and saying, there's no volleyball here. You have to actively engage in that. Switching over and saying, instead of giving allegiance to God, instead I'm going to give allegiance to the earth. I'm going to worship the creature rather than the creator. Romans 1, the book of wisdom. Read them. If you wish to understand the matter more clearly, reflect upon the relation in which you stand to your earthly father. When do you please him best? And I like that he included best. When do you honor him most? Is it not when you believe in him most firmly and show a childlike confidence in him? This is what I was saying about this being a difficult thing to many modern ears, especially of young women. Tell me that I'm wrong. Men have dropped the ball. Men have dropped the ball. So many men, I see these complaints, about the altar girls. We call them girl altar boys, right? So the girl altar boys, you go into a church and you see that. A lot of times you'll see a dad, not always. And you'll also see some boys there sometimes. And I look and I say, those boys are sitting there in the pews, bored out of their mind. And they're watching as others are filling in the gap, right? And it's because the men have not stood up. The men have not lived exemplary lives, and it's never been a golden era. I don't want to, through none of this, please just know that I'm fully aware that the democracy of the dead is more like us than we oftentimes want to think. We categorize antiquity and medieval and modernity. We have those categories, and it's kind of like we're the progress and change folks. We're the evolution. We've moved forward in time. We've made dramatic progress. And in some ways, particularly technological ways, it's totally true. But it's come with a cost. It's come with a cost. But these things like this is tough. I personally know a lot of women, good-hearted women, who are going through a tough time with their parents. Maybe their dad is a complete jerk. And maybe he's done things in his life that do not warrant the young woman believing this way, or young man, because this cuts both ways. And yet, even then, to honor him the most that you can, to give him the benefit of the doubt insofar as you can, even if it occasionally hurts you, to have a childlike confidence in him, even if you're let down, even if you get hurt. And I'm not saying to put yourself in danger, but I'm saying your feelings. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to look, and the thing is, there will come judgment, won't there? Where if a dad is a terrible guy, if a dad has done terrible things, and he didn't deserve any of that, and his daughter or his son honored them, even in light of it, even in spite of it, that they honored them, that they did their best to show a proper regard by not throwing them under the bus 24/7. Because that's easy to do, isn't it? I've done it. I used to be super mad at my dad. And I would throw my dad under the bus. Some things are better kept inside the home. And insofar as they seep out of the home, that you don't bring the skeletons out to do a dance. But instead you say, you know what, can you just pray for my family? Pray for my dad, pray for my mom, and pray for me too. Because everything inside of me is really mad, and I need to do the right thing. And in the end, it doesn't mean it's going to work. Sometimes it does. My wife is experiencing this right now with her dad. I won't go into a bunch of details other than to say she has not seen her dad since she was about 10 years old. And recently, through tragedy, in fact, through an accident, her mother was in an accident, her brother died. Her mother was driving. Her mother now, she's out of a coma. She was in a coma for a long time. Came out, they weren't sure how she'd be. She'll need assistance. But she's doing much better. But she's going to need assistance. And Angela had to go through tons of things. She had to go through legal proceedings. Things to do with being a guardian or a conservator of an estate. Not only of her mother, but her brother. To deal with lawyers and to deal police reports, doctors, therapists, all of that. And the dad, even from afar, recognized it. And after all these years, the two of them have talked. They began talking. And he told her that her mom is really fortunate to have a daughter as awesome as her. Now, not every relationship ends this way. Not any. Right? It doesn't have, they don't all end that way. But they will all end. And when they do, you know, I've always imagined, you know, when you're judged, that sometimes those things that you did that maybe the other person didn't recognize, or maybe the other person took advantage of, that you, in fact, will also stand in judgment. Not to be the one with the gavel, but be the one that's life and witness testifies to. And the pain and anguish of recognizing that throughout it all, that even when that dad or even when that mom did not deserve love, that they can see in that flash of a moment at the judgment seat, that in fact, that's what their child gave them. And the Lord would smile on us, wouldn't he? For doing what was difficult, but doing what we must. And yet, if we talk about happiness, what is it? It's our Catholic faith. That is the source of the greatest happiness, even while we are yet on earth. Think about this. Simply reflect on a few ordinary events of your life. Right? What are ordinary events? Right? What are some ordinary events in your life? The brightest and happiest days that you know. He brings it back to this. He says, when you see a procession of what? Of children entering the church, their heads adorned with wreaths, their faces beaming with joy, little white suits and dresses. First communion. Maybe that's not your happiest day. Maybe it should be. Yet would the external solemnity, the magnificent ceremonial of Catholic worship alone make so deep an impression upon the heart? Is it not rather our holy Catholic faith, which enables us to appreciate the beauty and understand the happiness of the pure and innocent soul of the young girl? The young girl who is privileged to enter for the first time into the closest union with the author of life, with the supreme good, with the source of all happiness, that is, with God himself. He says that the greatest joy when talking to a Catholic mother would be where her son, the most promising of all her children, is about to ascend the step of the altar in order to offer for the first time the spotless Lamb of God to the eternal Father. But again, what is the source of that? Why are we happy about that? I can imagine worldlings being very confused and saying, you're happy that your son is not going to make babies? Your son is not going to be married and have children? Imagine if for whatever reason, and I know these women exist, where maybe they only had one child, and that one child ends up being a priest. And they're never able to have those grandchildren, biological. And yet somehow they're able to find joy. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be sadness. There's too many stories of otherwise saintly mothers and fathers who are bummed when they first learn about that. A lot of the saints, their parents were that way. It's a natural thing. But yet at the same time, to recognize that, you know what, you're going to see spiritual grandchildren. You take care of yourself. You go to the sacraments and believe that faith that your son did. That your son did enough to go to seminary so that he too would ascend those steps after confessing and going up those steps to celebrate at that altar, that sacrifice. And to say that on the other side, once we get past the pearly gates, once we're in and we're there, imagine the way that you would be able to see the people that son affected their lives. And let's add daughters to that, not to the celebration of the Mass, but to being a sister. Someone who's dedicated their life as a virgin to say, I'm not going to be with a man. I'm going to live a life separate and apart, holy, reserved for a specific work within the church, a servant of a servant. How many call them mother? And how many of those that do call those women mother, how many of those will we see on the other side and rejoice with them? But this happiness is vouchsafed only for a few mortals. If it's true that sorrow and suffering enter into the life of every child of man. And if it's equally true that the poor human heart needs some solid consolation amid grief and tribulation, in this case also it is the Catholic faith which is able to supply this consolation. You know, I know this intimately well. You know, when my best friend Scott died in a car accident, I had already walked away from the church. He didn't. He struggled. He had his own issues in life, right? But he'd come over to the house and talk to me about how he couldn't do what I had done. He couldn't walk away from God like that. That he went to confession. That he'd wake up early in the morning and he would go to St. Joseph in Battle Creek. And he'd go to confession. And he would talk to me about it. But when he died, I didn't pray. I was so angry. And that's the thing. I was actually angry at God. I remember being angry at God and people saying, well, why are you angry at God if God doesn't exist? And I'm like, well, I'm angry at the idea of God. And the answer is no. No, I wasn't. I was filled with sin and spite. My life was morbidly deformed. All sorts of discombobulated. Everything. And I'd become a slave to sin to such a degree that the arrogance was through the roof. And I couldn't even bring myself to get on my knees, even just to cry and tell God, I don't understand. God knew my heart. I think you could even see through the layers of darkness to see that at the core there was an element of that too. But when my daughter died, that first month was like a fog. And not even the first month, it was more than that. Months. It was a fog. I've called it time flies in the fog of war. And that when that happened, it's like a daze. You don't even know what's going on. You're functioning. You're doing what you've got to do, but you're not there. Life happens all around you, things moving all about. And I remember somebody asked me one time, they said, because I was able to put on a good front. And they said, hey, do you feel your daughter still? And I know what they meant by that. Do you guys, the feeling like when you're watching TV or something, or you're sitting down reading a book and you can sense that your children got home and they're outside, right? And they are, maybe in a really subtle way, you caught the idea of the door closing or you heard something, but you're not consciously thinking about that. But you sense that they're there. Or you can sense that someone is watching and you turn around and it's your daughter or your wife or somebody, my son hiding behind a chair yesterday trying to scare me. You failed, bud. You did not scare me. Sometimes he does. And it's pretty dumb looking. I look pretty silly. But, but the thing is, you sense that they're nearby. And they asked me, do you still feel your daughter? Now, I was surrounded at the time. I had paintings. I had these balloons that were there at the hospital before she died, and they were there in her room when she died. They were there, and they were still full of life. In fact, they were full of life for a really long time. Remarkable. And I remember looking at that every day. But there was a part of me that I knew that this was all a facade. This was all shallow. It's like a dream state. And one day I'll wake up, and when I wake up, I will notice, and in fact I did, that those balloons would one day deflate and fall to the ground. I remember how I felt. I remember the sadness. I remember the music. I remember sitting there and I would just stare at screens. I could hear my kids in the other room, and I would talk to them sometimes, but I wasn't there. And I remember when I snapped out of it, I was sitting in a chair, and I remember all of a sudden I snapped out, and I think it was during the election or something in 2016. And I was staring at Twitter. I was sharing something from WikiLeaks or something. And I looked at myself, And I saw my belly just hanging hard over, I was like, I don't even think I had a shirt on. I'm wearing sweatpants, and anyone who knows me knows that I must be in a pretty dark place if I'm wearing sweats. If I'm not working out and I'm wearing some sweatpants, I'm probably not doing good in my life. That's a good way to measure it. But I remember wondering how long it had been because I didn't remember. And it had been like 3 months. And I looked over, and those balloons, I still have them, by the way, in a box. I won't ever let it go. But I was so sad. And there was no fixing it. Nothing I did. I tried so hard. Don't we all do this sometimes? I'm sorry. Don't we all do this? Where we try to fill our life with things. People talk about that God-shaped hole in your heart. And you say, I try to fill my heart with all of these different things, and I tried to create something because I knew what the answer was. Deep down inside, I knew that the answer was the church. I knew it. I knew that there was nothing I could do, but I scrambled. I gave it my best. And I said, I know that when you're in church, that it's multifaceted. Church is a megazord, right? It's a whole bunch of things that kind of fit together that create a culture, a system. And so I said, well, how do we get involved with a group of like-minded people? What about events for boys or for girls? What about places where we can go and have like accountability people? If we're struggling with things in life, that we can talk to them. What about places we can go on a Sunday or whatever that's predictable, where you're part of a group bigger than yourselves? Maybe you sing. And I tried with everything inside of me to find those individual things and put it together like a puzzle and hope that it would work. But there's a difference between a puzzle and a body. There is a difference. The church is a body. And I was trying to put together pieces that simply didn't fit. It's like those puzzle pieces where it's close enough that, the kids will push really hard on them and make them but they're like sticking up and you got a little kind of sliver of space. That's what it was like. And what was troubling was that I knew. And I knew that the world couldn't give it to us. I'd already seen the slop. I could tell what slop was. I could tell what the pigs were. And I knew that we were there in the trough. I knew it. And I knew that every single day that I was keeping the kids away from the church, that I was dragging them back to that trough, and I was shoving their face in that slop, and I was telling them to eat because it was healthy. I'm going to go through purgatory for a long time. So please pray for me. I mean it. I'm not even joking. God have mercy, please. You, my daughter, know as yet but little of sorrows and suffering. Sorry. But ask those, and their number is large indeed, who have often and painfully felt that this world is a valley of tears. Ask them what has sustained them in their darkest hours of sorrow and suffering. What has poured the healing balm of consolation into their wounded hearts, and even enabled them to rejoice in tribulation. Ask them, and they will tell you. They will tell you that it is the faith which has done all of this. I can tell you. I can tell you. I know people who've gone through terrible things. And I used to think, with prayer, a lot of people when they pray, they're always banking on a miracle, and I don't. I'm just being honest. It's kind of like C.S. Lewis in that movie Shadowlands, when talking about his wife and the disease that she's dealing with, the cancer that she's dealing with, and how prayer isn't so much for her as it is for him, to be quite frank, making it through in case she doesn't. And I used to look at people when I was an unbeliever, and I'd look at families that prayed with their children, and I would get upset about it. And I'd say, statistically, you are no more likely to be alive. There is a book of the dead for childhood cancer, and there's no asterisk in there that says, if you go to mass, you're more likely to live. There is no asterisk for that. But there is if you do a follow-up with the families that are there and place their faith in God, the families that find their peace in the Lord, the families that do not turn their back in that way. Those families don't always fall apart. In fact, infrequently do they fall apart. Not so. Not so with others. Not so with families that had great and tremendous loss and know God to hold them there. And what will faith do in the decisive moment, the supreme and terrible moment of death? The mother of Melanchthon, on her deathbed, right? The protege for Martin Luther, right? Melanchthon, asked her son whether she should keep the ancient Catholic faith or embrace the new one. With deep emotion, Melanchthon, though himself an apostate, replied as follows: "Dear mother, keep your ancient faith, Catholic faith. The new faith is indeed easier to live by, but the old faith is easier and happier to die by." Never forget that the Catholic faith renders death easier and happier. When we went through death, right? When we went through that, and it was that dark place, it started to thaw. In fact, it started to thaw with things like McGee and Me. I don't know if you know what that is. It's an old Focus on the Family thing. McGee and Me. It should have been turned into a show. In fact, the production quality was so good, all things considered. It was from the 80s, right? And it had that 80s vibe to it. But it was so good that, I don't know if it was NBC or who, wanted to pick it up. But they said, you got to take Jesus out. You got to take Jesus out. And they said no. Ended up causing all sorts of issues. In fact, the lead character ended up, for a while, I think, homeless and addicted to heroin. He's since got his life together. But that was something that he really struggled with. I reached out to him. I think we might even still be friends on Facebook, right? So we're connected, right? But I reached out to him because I started watching stuff like that. I started watching Little House on the Prairie. I said, no more of this Jesse nonsense. No more of the ridiculous nonsense on television. I at least wanted to have something that was uplifting and family friendly. And the truth was, I couldn't find anything. But I knew what to go back to. I knew what to go back to. And that's when the thaw began. Let not the world with promise fair rob thee of faith, that good beyond compare. 'Tis thy soul's strength and saves it from despair. As innocent as the maiden's fairest ornament, so is faith, her most precious possession. It resembles the glorious light of the sun, which cheers and animates all created nature. How sad and gloomy, how cold and unfruitful would the earth be without this light. Therefore, the first and most important affair of your life is to preserve this light. And this is no easy matter, especially in the present day, when unbelief is gaining ground with terribly rapid strides. So what does he say to do? And again, this is true for the boy and for the girl. The first thing is to attend diligently to religious instruction. You have to set a high value on the Word of God as announced to you in sermons and religious instructions, and not absent yourself from them on any frivolous pretext. It's one of the reasons, people can kind of rip on, Protestants and stuff. I've done my fair share of, jabs and everything. But there's something to people taking notes. There's something to having your Bible and reading along with it. It's okay. It's okay. It's good to be able to sit there and listen to the story or listen to it. That's perfectly fine. We do the same thing when we're doing school. In college, you're taking notes. It's not like you're not listening. You're taking notes. But oftentimes people that are like, nope, just listening, a lot of times they're not really doing a good job listening. It's easy to get distracted. How often will you hear a sermon, a homily, and you go home and you don't even remember what it's about? Maybe you really should bring some, paper and a pencil. Maybe you should do that. Speaking of something we should do, I just really quickly want to say Tridentine Brewery. Tridentine Brewing, Second Amendment, New England IPA. Very, very, very good. Very, very, very good. So you got to put a high price on it. It's good to give the girls a Bible. Find one that's fitting, and be okay with the idea. You're going to hear inevitably. You're going to hear people who say, "Well, the Douay-Rheims is really tough to read." That's true. It can be for modern readers. It can be. But I have to say this, okay? And I don't mean to dog anybody. I know some folks in this movement, right? People who are involved with the King James only movement, right? King James only, the 1611 crowd. Most of them are not highly educated people. Most of them are not reading books like Cicero or Dante or Pascal. They're not reading any of these great classic works or anything like that. Some do, but a lot of them, those really are Johnny Q. Sally Sue's. But they're Johnny Q. Sally Sue Protestant person, and yet what? They're able to read it. In fact, they would die for it. There are people in foreign countries that take the King James and say, we learn English by studying the King James. And that's something you're capable of doing, in fact. It's the rhythm behind and the meaning behind what a lot of moderns look as madness when they go, oh, all the thee and thine and thou talk. There's a reason for that. You can understand sentence structures based on this. Senses and tenses and tenses. Yeah, the senses of words and the tension that it's creating in you. Oh boy. So yes, it can be tough, but it's one of those things that's like, look, you actually should press on that. And I'm not saying you have to. I'm not a Douay-Rheims onlyist. I'm not one of those guys. And it cracks me up because I have more right to be. Why? Because I have the original and true Douay-Rheims. I have the 4-volume set. That bad mamma jamma is lots of money, and I have it. I have it. And it is better than your Douay-Rheims. And I'm not lying. It actually, it's superior. I have a superior Douay-Rheims to you. You have the fake one. You have the New World Order version. That's what you've got. I have the real one, But so I read the old school. That one's even harder. That one's even harder to read. And yeah, by the way, Patty says, can you please put the author and the book title of the book you read on the show? I did. I did an entire thing about it. And I'll do that in the future. I'll put notes about Father Lassance. I'll add that because we're not going to have the 100 thing up here. That's only today. But that's a good suggestion. However, we went through the entire bio of Father Lassance. And it's in the description, man. It's in the description, so come on. Do some legwork. Do some legwork. Stop lifting all the time on your upper body. You're starting to look like those old roosters. Like this. Do some legwork. The mental image, man. The mental image. The second means of keeping the faith is to live in accordance with its teaching. The harder the blows dealt by the hammer, the more deeply the nail is driven in. So you got to live it. You got to live it. And it's one of those things where isn't that hard? It sounds like so easy. Like just live it, guys. Just live out the faith. That's not a problem. You mean the notes so you can read it? You don't see what notes? Yeah, okay. I get it again in order enthusiasm. Okay, so you're saying that you can't read the notes. What you watching this on your iWatch? What are you doing? You got one of those little easy phones? And by the way, I'm sorry. I do put all of the notes, all of the screenshots. I take time not only to put them here, but I put them on Patreon. And they are made available for people who donate to Patreon for every level. So $5, $10, all of it. All of those will be available. And I try to make them available before the show. That way people can actually follow along with them. You can print them out. You know? You can do whatever you want. Otherwise, you're going to have to squint maybe. Or buy yourself a magnifying glass. Buy a magnifying glass. All right. You've got Mad 1769. You got people in the comments. I feel badly for you guys. I don't need to actually deal with the comments very often, so I don't get to see trollsters coming in with their enthusiasm glasses and going, yeah, Peter's not the Pope. Yeah, find out what else is in that system he's got hiding up his sleeve. Say, oh, yeah, so what do you think about this and that? Are you a George Fox type? You an Anabaptist-y type? You a Methodist or Wesleyan type? What are you exactly there, buddy? What are you? Yeah, cherry picking big time. It's crazy. I feel badly for everybody in the comments. You must endure, though. You must endure. Yeah, that's living out the faith, isn't it? Dealing with wackos and weirdos. Dealing with people, randos who come in, Mad 1769. Doesn't even have the bravery to use his real name. Some rando coming in being like, I'm going to come against your faith. That's what I do. I come into a chat that's talking about losing family members and burying kids with cancer and talking about overcoming the difficulties in your life and raising kids right. And all of that with faith and with prayer and with reading the Bible. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to convert people in the comment section on a completely unrelated point. What a weirdo, bro. What a weirdo, homie. You got to feel badly for folks like that. Enthusiast par excellence. And this right here, this is great. Listen to a parable, right? A wealthy Greek carefully selected a cask and filled it with the choicest wine. In order to protect himself against thieves, he affixed his seal to the mouth of the cask. However, in spite of his precaution, a cunning slave bored a little hole in the bottom of the vessel, and thus succeeded in getting at the wine, being able to close the aperture without much difficulty. Ere long, he perceived that the wine was rapidly diminishing. But as the seal remained unbroken, he was at a loss to account for this. The mystery was solved by a friend who said to him, quote, no doubt someone draws out the wine from beneath. However, the foolish man could not understand this and absurdly protested that the wine was not deficient at the bottom, but at the top of the cask. Right? And so he describes this by saying, Right here. Why is faith so greatly diminished in the Christian world? Because we're going to talk about apologetics. In fact, I said we're going to talk about apologetics this time, and I think that we have, in fact. I think we have. We've talked about the apologetics that truly matters. Most people are not persuaded by an argument, by a premise to conclusion, and said, well, that's a fine syllogism you've got there. I think that I'm going to go and ponder that at home, that syllogism. Or, oh, that's a nice bit of historical evidence you have that Jesus was in fact a real person. That's sufficient. It most certainly is not. Most atheists are not mythicists. Most atheists do not believe in mythicism that says that Jesus is kind of this concoction of a variety of myths mishmashed together to create the man. Most of them believe, in fact, he was a man. Most of them would say he's a liar. Most of them would say he's a liar or a lunatic. They don't say he's Lord. Otherwise, they would be Christians. It's why we cannot believe certain quotes from Josephus that are attributed to Josephus that later on we're come to find out, yeah, that if he believed that, he'd be a Christian. He would not be a Jew. He'd be a Christian. He performed all these miracles because he is the Christ, kind of thing. And you're like, okay, so you believe he's the Messiah. Yeah, what are you? You must be a Christian then. No. So you believe he's the Messiah, and he's the Christ, and he performed all these miracles and all of this, and he rose from the dead, which is attributed, of course, to him. And it's like, oh, I don't know about that. Oh, no. Preserved before Constantine. In the comment section, stop. Stop. Just send that guy over to the enthusiasm playlist stat. This guy, he is bleeding of it. You are bleeding out, homie. I got to take this thing off. It's so distracting. I'm like, ugh. Ugh. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Unlike, by the way. Unlike, I must say. And I really hope that they're watching this show. Second Amendment, New England IPA, the Tridentine Brewery. The Tridentine Brewing. I keep saying brewery. Brewing. Tridentine Brewing Company. It is the brewery. And I got to go down there. I got to do a Mr. Rogers and make a video down there. Say, how do you brew that, man? Totally fantastic beer. Make a video about that. And maybe a video of me drinking a bunch of it. It can be a lot of fun. We got to be on guard, though, don't we? We got to be on guard. We have to be on guard as young children. We have to be on guard as people coming of age, as adults, married or otherwise, parents or otherwise. We have to be especially on guard even as we get older. We must be, especially if we weren't on guard before. We live in a world where so many people have walked away from the faith, right? And yet, did they walk away from the faith because they didn't know it? Had they never heard? Had they never heard? Maybe they grotesquely misunderstood. Maybe they were ignorant and yet within the bubble of this, right? And that's possible. That's possible. That's why St. Francis de Sales talks about various degrees of culpability, even for folks who were living in Geneva when he was in the area, and he's writing to them, Protestants who had fallen prey to complete weirdos like John Calvin, and said, hey, look, these individuals may have grown up in this. They don't even know any better. The first folks, maybe they did, but these ones don't. So there is a dynamic of that. I mean, how many people, was it the worship singer from Hillsong? Was that what it was? Came out, I think, less than a year ago or something like that, about a year ago maybe. Came out and was talking about how he just doesn't know if he can believe in God, because if God's all good, how does he let evil exist? I'm like, dude. Oh, I've never thought of that before. Hey, yo, theologians and apologists, let's hurry up and get on that for the first time. I don't know how we didn't notice. That's a dude who doesn't read. That's a dude who's in the magic moment all the time. Singing his songs, getting in the spirit, selling a bunch of records, making a bunch of money, all the while dumb as a box of rocks. He thought that it was fine enough. It's like a person who believes that maybe if they just put a book under their pillow that they'll learn all of it. I mean, it's kind of a funky epistemology if you ask me. And it landed homeboy out in the dark. And of course, Christian apologists left and right were coming and saying, dude, are you serious, man? That's embarrassing. You're actually embarrassing us. In that situation, that might be a shut up and sing moment. And then privately call me so that you don't look so stupid online. Because you just scandalized people. You scandalized us. And you know what? Maybe it's healthy, I think, for the church in a way, to recognize that when people do stuff like that, when people like Audrey Assad, I told people to pray for her. I have a video where we do. And saying that, you know, when she says the things that she says, and she doesn't recognize how she's got verms on the brain and enthusiasm in her veins, she doesn't see it. That's big trouble, because that's something that we are up against. And we must do good. We must do better. We must truly catechize our children. We must truly catechize ourselves in a day and age where maybe we're not getting the best catechesis, right? We have to do some of the footwork sometimes. And I know that it's hard. I know it's a bummer. But at the same time, you got to do what you got to do. And speaking of doing what you got to do, somebody's car alarm's going off outside. Oh, I'm hearing it in the background. I hope you don't. Now everyone's gonna be paying attention. They've got those horns in their ear, you know. Got those horns in their ear like the old-fashioned ones, and like, do I hear that noise? Okay, somebody turned it off. Good. But we have to do better. I do not want my children growing up and getting to that place where they can say, I was adequately catechized, I was catechized big time, and then they end up falling on the sword of something stupid. If you're going to fall on the sword, at least make it something that's worthwhile, that makes it something like, you know, that is actually a difficult question. That does require a kind of extraordinary faith and a peace that passes all understanding. I get that. But not something dumb, and not to act like they've just stumbled on some magical thing like, dang, son. Like a buddy, you know, and it's somebody reached out to me, and I'm not being, I don't want to be mean. I am strongly imploring this person, get your butt offline. Don't get online. Get off. It's not helping you. When you get into a debate with a relatively prominent person on the other side, right, of the ocean, and you're in a debate with that person over slavery, and it all of a sudden hits you that the Old Testament endorsed it, and that it causes a crisis of faith. You should not be online. You are engaged in a kind of apologetic activity that is apparently above and beyond you. And that's not bad. That's something, everything we're going to be talking about, that is what this is about. It's knowing your place. You don't just get out and just start doing your own thing all the time and thinking that it's perfectly fine. It lands people in trouble all the time. It's what landed me in trouble. When I became a Catholic the first time around, when I became a Catholic around the time my son Athanasius was born, I went from being a guy who was preaching sermons at a pulpit and writing online about Protestantism and against Catholicism, and I had a TV show and a radio show, and all of a sudden I'm a Catholic, and what do? I just keep writing. I don't even change the blog. I just keep, and it's funny enough, it was Paleocrat. I think enough time has gone by. And it was a moniker anyway for me, but I didn't change anything. It was just, now it's a crucifix, not a cross, but I'm still out there preaching the same thing. You know, I've added some new dynamics to it, but I never took the time to step away. And there's this idea that, well, I've gone through catechism, I went through RCIA, that's sufficient enough. I've been properly catechized. Baloney, you have. Statistically, the probability is big time against you. Big time. If I had to bet the farm, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, that person over there has gone through RCIA, are you willing to bet your life that they're properly catechized? I would not even hesitate. I would say, probably not. Final answer. Final answer. And apologetics isn't just for everybody, not as a formal thing. There's a reason people go to school. There's a reason why, even with my apologetic method, it's primarily through narrative. That's why. It's re-evangelization. I leave certain apologetics to the theologians. I do. We've democratized the daylights out of this and are at our peril. At our peril. So guard against them. He said it's beneath that the decline of faith proceeds. It originates in the lower region of life, that namely of sensuality and baser impulses. Do you notice how he doesn't say, and arguments that are not syllogistically, he's not saying premise to conclusion. You just need to download the information, and if you have it, you will come to the right conclusion. He doesn't do that, because that's not how people work. That's not how you maintain the faith. It's not. You have to guard yourself against these things. Why sensuality? Why the baser impulses? We started out talking today about the monsters outside. The monsters outside the castle with the mansions. Right? Using the imagery of St. Teresa of Avila to say those monsters and those venomous creatures with the fangs and the talons. And I talked about the baser things in life that people do when they're alone, when nobody else is around. Those things deep down inside, sensual things. Guard against them, my child, and beware lest you become their slave, and thus your faith be endangered. Look at Audrey Assad. Look at Audrey Assad. Look at Derek Webb. Look at them. Look at person after person after person. My life, I've talked about my apostasy. I've talked about how I framed it in public as, oh yeah, I learned this in school and that in school and this in astronomy and that in media theory. Baloney. Baloney, because at the root of it, sensuality. At the root of it, baser impulses. I did not guard against them. I gave up on prayer. I became its slave. What happens next? I'm sitting there saying that I'm better than God. Holy cow. Holy cow. It's so crazy how everybody believes they're a snowflake. Oh, Father Lassance wouldn't understand. He didn't live my life. He's a priest. What does he know? Man, we've known the anatomy of sin and apostasy for a long time. Not only from the outside. I've said it before. I think the devil was whispering into Nietzsche's ear when he wrote Antichrist. It's true. So it's not just from within and the doctors of the church. Because we have that, of course, take preparation for death, or the great means of salvation and perfection. St. Alphonsus Liguori, the anatomy of sin and apostasy, and the blueprint for how to protect yourself and others from that. The chief means of preserving a firm and enlightened faith is what? An argument? Is it an argument? No. Prayer. Prayer. Faith is a gift of divine grace. He talks about Isnard. A Frenchman who lived in the beginning of the last century learned from experience. During the Great French Revolution, he totally lost his faith. He became a so-called free thinker. They're the most slave-like people in the world, by the way. You know, and I'm not meaning to dog them. Some of them were there for me during crazy times. Some of them did their best to love me. Some of them are still my friends. But there's a lot of slavery going on, and I don't think I'd be very friendly to deny it. And I don't think they'd be very honest to deny it either. By turn of fortune's wheel, he lost his entire wealth, his life being also imperiled. At this juncture, he applied himself with great ardor to the study of the truths of the Christian religion. Upon this point, he expresses himself as follows in a work which he subsequently published, quote, "I soon perceived that in searching for the truth, everything depends on the disposition of the heart. Therefore, I betook myself to prayer, and my mental horizon speedily cleared that I regained my faith. So did I." Certain things thawed, okay? I mentioned before, Little House on the Prairie. I mentioned before, McGee and Me. You know? There were things that I did and things that helped along the way. I had friends in my life. I've mentioned a number of them here. I've interviewed at least one of them on the show, Luke Getz. People that were in my life that helped me along the way. Craig French. My friend Craig French is the one who gave me the book. He's Anglo-Catholic, right? He's an Anglo-trad. And he's the one who sent me my copy of the book that I have on how not to be secular, which we're going to talk about. It's one of the things we're going to talk about over at Reason and Theology. But at the end of the day, those things only take you so far. You can be thawed out. And I didn't intend this, but I used to talk about how it was like an iceberg, you know, when you've fallen away and you've caved into sensuality, you've caved into baser impulses. And I said, you know, it was like trying to find our way back, you know. It was really terrible. It was hard. And I was caught between cross pressures, like these icebergs. Because if you imagine an iceberg, you know, the base of it under the water is much larger than what you see on top. And I said, if you take that image and you have two of them side by side, the visible part of one iceberg, let's say one is atheism and one is Catholicism. The tip of the iceberg for atheism was something that I identified with. These were visible things. I was part of an atheist community of people. I did not go to church. I claimed to disbelieve in God. I was one of the most Christian atheist people most of my friends knew. You know, I maintained an enormous number of traditions. You know, I was kind of running on fumes for a long time with this stuff, but I was constantly trying to refill those fumes, right? Going back even to Mass or Divine Liturgy on Christmas Eve, trying my best to keep that. Even if it was nostalgia, I didn't care. It needed to remain there. But the tip of that was something that I had in common. However, the bulk of that iceberg, the vast majority of the beliefs and practices of people who deny God, I had nothing in common. And if you look at the other iceberg, right, kind of on a little bit of a crash course, you got to weave your way. You're caught in between that pressure. You look at the tip top of that, I didn't have stuff in common with that. I wasn't going to church. I didn't have, you know, a crucifix on my wall. I did, however, have the image of Our Lady of Mount Carmel that I've got behind me. But I didn't have the things that would stand out, that would identify me with the Catholic Church in any way. Closest I got really was saying that, you know, Leo the 13th and Chesterton and Belloc and Arthur Penty and Father Pesch, that these were still big influences on my beliefs regarding political economy. But underneath the water, there were tons of things. There were tons of things, beliefs and practices in our home, in my own life, even my temperament in some ways, the tendencies that I had were still very traditional. It's why I never really messed very well with so many free thinkers, quote unquote. And it's one of those things where underneath that hole is there in people, even in those who are thundering in a microphone that God doesn't exist, that underneath that iceberg, or underneath that layer of water, right? Underneath the surface is an enormous number of things, including, not the least of which, is that volleyball we talked about. That understanding as a creature of God, made in God's image, placed in a world where you live and move and have your being, in a world that indicates his design, recognizes it, even intuitively, at the level of your conscience and your heart, that to sit there and say, that volleyball that person's pressing down, that is intentionally doing so, which means part of them knows better, which also means part of them, you have to believe that part of them wishes it wasn't so. You have to. It's why you got to pray, and it's why you got to be consistent. But you also got to be serious. And you might not know all the best arguments in the world. That doesn't matter. The debate isn't going to end with you anyway. Atheists, agnostics, idolaters, schismatics, heretics, all of those that are mentioned in that act of reparation that I pray when I go to Mass, and I've shared before, even on in Telegram, and even I'll share it today. I'll share it on Patreon publicly, so that way everybody can pray that. Over on Patreon, I'll share the act of reparation. It's powerful. But all of those people mentioned, it's why we got to be fervent, and they're still going to exist. You can have the best arguments. We have great debaters right now. Those people still exist. And yet more and more people are falling prey. Are they falling prey to the arguments of Christopher Hitchens? No. Are they falling prey to the arguments by popular atheist people? Or atheists masquerading as scientists on TV? Is that what's winning the day? Is it the scientism? Do you really believe that's winning the day? Or do you believe that it's a twofold thing? It's sin in their life, and it's sin or the lack of the integrity that shines through in a person who is fervently living out the faith, no matter what, taking a knee for Jesus every single day, rejoicing for the day he's made, recognizing that he's placed us here for a time such as this, and resolving deep within their bones that they are going to never give up, that they're going to keep on smiling, and that they're going to momentum more, because one day we too shall die. And God isn't going to say, well, that was a really good argument you had with somebody. He is going to say, did you live this way? Did you pray? Did you have faith? What did you do? How did you live? You may make terrible arguments, but you prayed and you loved me and you changed people's lives. Yeah. All right. We didn't even get to the boys. That's the girls. That's the girls part. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed part one. And I hope you enjoyed it in the comments section. I hope you enjoyed yourself, even with weirdos in there. Even with weirdos in there. That you constantly, that you're shining that light. Right? And I hope that even though I say weirdos, I hope he knows, being kind of playful a little bit. Being kind of playful. Again, I extend the same offer. If I ever see that cat, I would never know, anonymous people, rando annons, make it kind of hard to know. And they're kind of spooky people thinking the world's all after them, but not after your boy, for some reason. I'm like, how are they not after me, but they're after you, because you're really doing the work. Yeah, I see. Under my comment sections. Yeah, you're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself out there big time, bro. Doing a good job. You want to do a good job? Check out that stuff right there. PaleocratDiaries@gmail.com if you want to email me. In fact, I got to take that out of there. Just go to Telegram, please. Connect with me on Telegram. It's way better. You can connect with me. You can email just like it there. You can also send videos. You can send everything else. It's better than Gmail. Big time. Way smoother, way faster, way more interactive, immediately so. Immediately. So make sure to go check all that out. Of course, remember, Monday, beginning next Monday, going to be over at Reason and Theology. Going to be a whole bunch of fun. Go over to the same maker. Never showed the video. It's okay. You know, it's good. Until next time, my friends, never give up. Keep on smiling. And memento mori.
I wanted to make people dream bigger thoughts.